Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are. Welcome to Views on the News.
Russia was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the Caribbean drag.
Yeah, that's a good question. So what do you have to say about that, guys?
As regular members, viewers, or panelists will know, this is a spin-off show from Global Atheist News. Now, I'd like to make a distinction here because Global Atheist News is objective reporting. It's dispassionately delivered. It's not my views. I feel I have to explain this because some viewers who obviously have been brought up watching Fox so-called news, which is actually propaganda, don't seem to understand the principle of reporting what happened without giving it a spin, a bias to a political attitude. This is the show where we give opinions. And on my opinionated, wise and witty panel tonight, I have regular panelist David Orenstein from New York. How the devil are you, David?
The devil is treating me very well. Thank you.
Good. I'm pleased to hear that. And we have a new boy, Gregory from Puerto Rico. How the devil are you, Gregory?
Well, thanks for having me again.
Yeah, I should explain that he said again because he was our guest on Free Thought Hour last night. And we're giving him a taster of this show to see whether he likes it, whether he'd want to join us. Okay, first news item. Well, you may know from the document I sent round that there's not many news items this week. Mm-hmm. And it's our opportunity to maybe go a bit deeper in the analysis of some items that could take, a bit more in-depth and understanding. So, starting off, a Pakistani imam in Italy gave a sermon saying that every Muslim should fight the infidels, that's us, or face catastrophic consequences. The next day, the Prime Minister in Italy, Giorgia Meloni, personally requested that he should be deported for that hate speech. Mm-hmm. He'd lived in Italy for 30 years. What do you think about that? What do you think about, first of all, his preaching, and secondly, her response?
Well, what was his citizenship status? Was he a citizen of Italy?
I really can't tell you that. I don't know. All I know is that he'd lived in Italy for 30 years. And I mean, presumably he would have been found out if he was an illegal over that time.
Yeah.
He was also giving sermons in Italy and somewhere. So, he wasn't hiding.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's certainly vile, right? I mean, regardless of your religious persuasion, if you're telling people that we live in an us and them world rather than a we world, and that not only that, but the people who aren't like you don't deserve humanity, and should be put to death because they're different from you, is completely vile and disgusting, and it doesn't matter what religion it comes from, but it's really sad. I think, if he's a citizen of Italy, and if there are the rights like in the U.S. about free speech, then no matter how abhorrent his speech is, it's probably covered by whatever they have as an equivalent. Whether or not he should be deported, that's up to Italian authorities. whether they want to be reactionary or whether they just want to, in my mind, put it into some other context.
Yeah. So I can tell you that here in the UK, we have laws against hate speech. I'm not sure saying that every Muslim should fight the infidels or face catastrophic consequences qualifies as hate speech. But I do know that our hate speech laws are not very well enforced. And I do also know that we have deported a couple of people, not many. That extreme measure has been employed.
Yeah, and on the other hand, I was looking because sometimes when you get news like this, you tend to think, okay, so who is ruling here? Is it the government or is it their religion?
Yeah.
And this is a very, very important thing to know. For example, I took the liberty of Googling exactly what the Quran said regarding this particular piece of news we're evaluating here. It's on the, sorry for the pronunciation, Al-Baqarah, Surah, verse 191 to 191. It says, and I quote, "Kill them wherever you come upon them, and drive them out of the places for which they have driven you out. For persecution is far worse than killing. And do not fight them at the sacred mosque unless they attack you there. If they do so, then fight them. That is the reward of the disbelievers." So pretty much, if we have a person whose religion comes before the government, more than likely they could be influenced by texts like this that I just read from the Quran. And again, this sparks the conversation. Do we really must be more diligent when it comes to the full separation of church and state?
Yeah.
And I think that cases like this is something that should be really being brought into daylight and used maybe as an example. Hey, this is one of the major problems that we have.
Yeah.
And by not doing anything, you're pretty much allowing this to take the minds of the believers and think that they can do as they please, since the government is not getting their hands dirty with this. At least that's kind of the way I see it regarding that.
Yeah. Some people who say don't obey man's laws. They don't think that we are qualified to make laws because their God is the one who does lawmaking in their minds.
Yeah, absolutely.
But isn't that a form of anarchy, though? Because if everyone follows their quote unquote God and says that the laws of man don't justify any participation in civil life, what you're basically doing is saying that anarchy should rule because you know, not everybody's going to believe the same thing.
And there's a huge difference that when I say we, I mean some of the people may be overlooking is that when it comes to laws and rules coming from God or any deity for whatever reason, those ones cannot be questioned. They have to be obeyed blindly. For example, if this senator or this other politician passed a bill, do this or don't do this, people can raise their hands. Hey, I don't like this. I am not into this. I disagree. That's perfectly fine. But when it comes from a deity, you cannot question. And that's the root for the cause. They cannot question. And this is something that in the 21st century should not be even be considered as something that
we will be visiting it again in another item later down the show. But the situation is that it's ongoing. I'm going to follow this news item to find out whether Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni gets her way. Yeah. So moving on to the next item. A teenager here in my part of the world, West Sussex, in a town called Horsham, county town. He has been jailed for 6 years because he's been involved in what's been described as a Satanist terror network targeting children online for sexual blackmail and violence. So this is quite horrifying. Just listen to some of this. The court heard that he was part of an extreme right-wing Satanist group. His name's Cameron Finnegan, by the way. Satanist group called 764. At least 4 British teenagers have been arrested in connection with the activities of that group, which has blackmailed children, mainly girls, into carrying out sexual acts, harming themselves, or even attempting suicide.
Oh my God. Ugh.
I have a million questions regarding that. Will it be different? I mean, I'm not condoning any of this. I'm not upholding any of this. I'm not agreeing to any of this. I'm just bringing an honest question to the table, and it'll be nice to have a discussion. Would this be seen differently if instead of Satanists will be any other religion, such as a Catholic or a Baptist or some other Christian religion of the many that we have? Will this be seen the same way? Will the charges be the same? Will the crimes that this person committed will be looked the same way? Because to me, I do not agree with any of the things this person did, but including the label Satanist, it can kind of make this enhance it from what it really is, which is something that this person did or did not do, depending on the context. But it'll be nice to see or to understand if a different label will have us looking different at this particular piece of information. And in our part of the world, it can be even misleading in some cases.
Well, I can tell you that Finnegan identifies himself. In fact, that network, 764, was founded by a US teenager, Bradley Cadenhead, who was 15 at the time he founded the 764 network. He's in Texas, and the group, he was arrested in 2021 and is now serving an 80 prison sentence for creating videos of children being sexually abused, choked, beaten, suffocated, and seriously injured. The network uses Nazi and Satanist imagery. His bedroom is adorned with swastikas and pentagrams. So they're choosing to label themselves like that.
Mm-hmm. Well,
go ahead. Go ahead, David. Yeah.
No, go ahead, Greg. I mean, if you have something to add, you can go first, and then I'll both your argument.
Yeah, but regarding the crimes that he's legally committed, I mean, I totally agree with the sentences. Abuse, terror, and warning as Satanist teenager jailed. Whoa, that's a huge pill to swallow, to tell you the truth.
Mm-hmm.
But again, and this is a very personal opinion of mine. Sometimes you can get to choose words differently in order to enhance whatever you want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know that this case was from Texas, and Texas is one of the most conservative states of the nation.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if there's a play working here. Again, the crimes are real. The facts happen, of course, but it's just it seems just a little bit like a play of words, which can be used to influence people reading the article. Just an opinion that I have regarding that.
Well, let me come in again here, because I've got some more information for you. Because there's a victim. We're calling her Jenna, not her real name, but she was in Australia and was 15 when she was first targeted by this group, 764. She was threatened for more than 2 years. Her mother says it was horrible. We have suicide manuals that they sent to her. The group also sent Jinnah images of child and animal abuse and coerced her into sharing explicit pictures of herself and self-harming on camera. Jenna's mother told us that the group had got her daughter to mutilate herself more and more. Deeper, worse, she's covered in scars. Eventually, the abusers ordered Jenna to kill her family's cat, and she refused to comply. They wanted her to do that on a live stream. But when she refused, I think they realized they were losing control of her. So Jenna is still traumatized by experiences with that group. But if you want to hear, that was, I think that was the American arm of the group. But if you want to hear from the actual teenager in my county, I can show you a video. Tell me what you think of this.
The only risk I was concerned about is that if she went through with it and I got caught. So you're concerned about, the only thing you're concerned about is if she went through with it and you got caught. Not about whether she was dead or not. I don't think about stuff in that moment. It's just stupid. I say without thinking.
So he doesn't take it as real. It's like a computer game for him. He's playing.
That's also the underdeveloped brain, you know. It doesn't excuse the horrible nature of these crimes, and they are crimes, and he should be held accountable for his crimes. But too many young people, I think, not only live their lives online more than they live their lives by going outside. And when you're in that echo chamber and you're young, you can easily be manipulated as both the perpetrator of a crime and, in this case, the victim of a crime.
Yeah,
that's your community, and you don't know any better. I just want to make a quick note because Gregory brought up a good point about the different states and everything, and Texas being so conservative. There was an article not that long ago from I think it's CNBC, which listed the 10 states who watch the most pornography. And lo and behold, it's not the blue states.
It's the red states.
It's West Virginia, Florida, Louisiana, North Dakota, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Hawaii, Mississippi, Alaska, and Utah.
Some of those are the Bible Belt.
So it's the Bible Belt, and so when you say all those people on the coast are demonic and evil and destroying the country, the reality is the people who are really now, whether or not you think watching porn is okay or not, I don't care one way or the other. But to say one thing about groups of people who live far away and then to see the actual data, you realize,
Can I come in here, because the actual data, and this is not a survey, this is electronic records of where the viewers are located territorially, shows that if you go away from the United States, because it's not the entire world, chaps.
It isn't? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. if you go away from that, you find that porn is consumed most heavily in the Islamic countries.
Right.
And there's something really, really big that David brought on. And the thing is, for example, he mentioned many states that we can call here the Bible Belt, which are states that are very, very conservative in their beliefs and the like. And the thing is that we are seeing cases in which a young kid, boy or girl, goes to their parents, "Hey, this happened to me," or "I feel this. I am not comfortable here."
Right.
And some of those parents, instead of choosing professional help, come on over. Let's go ahead and pray.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
And this is it's troublesome because, for example, sometimes kids are raising their hands, stating, "Hey, I am facing this," or
Yes.
"This is happening."
yes,
And instead of seeking help, they just go out and pray. And
yeah.
and this is an issue, a big issue here.
And of course, prayer has been thoroughly disproved as being an effective treatment for anything.
Right.
Of course.
So before we leave this, because it is a big issue here, because I've raised teenage boys, they're old men now, with children of their own. But I've also taught in boys' schools and mixed schools, and I know that there's a lot of aggression in the male teenage mind.
Mm.
It tones down as they age, hopefully,
Right.
in most cases. But just to give you a couple of anecdotes, at one large comprehensive school, I had to disarm a boy who had a knife and was threatening a fellow female member of staff, a small lady, about 5'2", and he was brandishing a knife at her, and I had to get that knife off him. There's another one, because at a different school, I taught at a large number of different schools, at a special needs school where emotionally and behaviorally disturbed children were boarded. One boy, he went through the school, and then after he left, he raped an old lady on the grave of her dead husband.
Oh God.
He was caught and jailed, and I don't know what's happened to him. But this is teenage boys for you. It is not a new problem.
Right.
What are we going to do about it?
Wow.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's
There is
that's
so
more than a
much
half hour
there.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For example,
yeah.
this reminds me of a book that I read back like a year ago or so. The book's title is "The Anxious Generation" by Jonathan Haidt, and it pretty much it doesn't go that deep into crime and stuff extreme like that, but it goes into behavior and why it happens the way it does. And for example, they grew up with this, and if they see someone in here that they're not too fond of listening, they tap the block button and they move on. But how are they going to be doing that in real life with coworkers, with schoolmates? They can't. Their brain is not prepared to do something like that.
Right.
So they pretty much choose stuff that for us will be out of the picture. But since they don't know better, they can go in that area and pretty much do that, because the ways that I was learning to do are incapable of fixing my problem in the real world.
Yeah.
You cannot block people in real life or censor them. This is not a thing. And our kids are growing with cell phones in their hands. That's how they socialize. They don't go out anymore.
Right.
And they grow up to be kids that don't have this basic fundamental understanding of people skills. Let's just say people skills.
I think that part of the problem is keeping the sexes separate. If you raise boys without contact with girls of a similar age growing up together, or if you denigrate half of the population as second-class citizens and put them in a black tent to walk around and they must be accompanied by a male escort, you're making a problem, because you are you are trying to say that these are fair game. You know, these people are not really proper people, and you can abuse them. That's what you're saying. So I think what we should be doing is compelling children to go to co-ed schools, not single-sex schools, so that they learn that the other sex is human and has the same rights. I know it sounds ridiculous, but
and to teach them that not everybody thinks the way they do,
Right.
and that's okay. Not everybody will see the world the way they do in that particular time. And with social media, we don't have that. We don't have that. We thought that we were bullied in school. That's nothing compared to social media nowadays.
yeah,
Because if you get bullied or someone or you bully someone, whatever, which is not right, by the way, okay, it happened 2-3 times, maybe 4, whatever, and then you forget about it and you move on. In social media, the internet doesn't forget.
yeah,
You can pull up stuff that happened 10 years back, 15 years back, and then you can still use it to make fun or mock somebody else.
Right.
Yep.
And that's something that we didn't have. We didn't grow up with that. So this is something that they're facing, and unfortunately, this is somewhat new in our racing kids game. And I feel guilty in part because I belong to the generation that raised teenagers, and maybe I was permissive with the cell phone with my girls. Probably, I don't know. They're amazing girls. I didn't have an issue with them, but it would be wrong for me to say it's their fault, but not mine. No, and we're all in this together.
Well, I don't know whether social media is entirely to blame. I think it began long before social media was available. Anyway, we started out talking about religion in schools, and I said we revisited for a later item. So here we are. In the UK, in the next county along from where I live, Hampshire, there's a problem with a with a secular school. It's not a religiously affiliated school. Unfortunately, in the UK, we have all sorts of schools, and we've recently made it more possible to have faith-based schools that can even influence the nature of their intake. They can say, unless you are properly Roman Catholic, church attending, you can't come to this school. It's horrible, but that's what we have. Thank you, Tony Blair. So the latest issue about this concerns a secular school in Hampshire where the headmaster has advertised for a post of pioneer youth worker. And the role of that person, when they're appointed, will be to enable growth in disciples of Christ by number and depth, by growing a new worshiping community at the school. The successful applicant will deliver worship activity within the school day and provide links between the school and the church congregation. The objectives of the position, which is jointly sponsored by the Anglican C of E Diocese of Portsmouth, is to convert 60 pupils into worshippers, increase Sunday attendance at the local St. Francis Church by 50, and hold baptisms and confirmation classes for children. The National Secular Society is up in arms objecting to this. Called for an investigation, and they've written to the county council saying that it's entirely inappropriate for the church to use a non-religious school for evangelism. What do you think about that?
Couldn't agree more. I mean, if it's not a parochial school, I mean, the laws in the U.S. are somewhat different from the UK because there's this quote unquote wall of separation of church and state. But you know, you have a good amount of people who are watching this, and you know, the laws being what they are, they should be held accountable. So I think it's a good thing, because why would you do this? And except and then the other thing is, well, let's say you allow this, right, or this passes muster in some way, legally, socially, then what's to stop me from wearing, proselytizing for the flying spaghetti monster, or Jews or pagans to come to that same school and say the same thing? Now, if you're a Catholic school, then of course your mandate is Catholicism. If you're Protestant, it's that. But if you say you're a secular school, well, then you can't just push one ideology or faith.
Well, the problem is, David, of course, we have an established church.
Right.
They think they've got a right, a privilege to impose their doctrine on anyone.
Right.
That's where it goes wrong. In fact, their aim with this, in this particular period of our lives, and they're spending millions of pounds on activities aimed at this, it's to double the number of children and young people who are active Christian disciples by 2030. We don't want it.
And the question is, and very important question, is every other religion being treated the same way? Are they being offered schools with the same budget that this one had?
Well, no, they can set up their own.
Of course not. Of course not. And that's precisely my point.
But the thing is, thanks to Henry VIII, thank you, Henry, we have one church which our state sponsors.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Right. As
so,
it's from the frying pan into the fire, because Henry wanted to give a good screw you to the Catholic Church, but he wound up causing a whole other series of problems.
Yep.
Yeah, so please forgive me for not knowing this. I am nowhere from the area. Well, so let me get this straight. So you're saying that, so you're saying that the county is actually favoring one religion over the others?
No, the county. No? the county.
No, I just want to know. I want to clarify, because I got a little bit lost in there.
Okay, the county says it has no role in directing the day-to-day activities of schools. Right. Now, the county, of course, is comprised of elected councillors. I was one some years ago, who are, for the most part, are not believers, not church-going, but the Church of England has this entrenched privileged position in our constitution that isn't written, by the way. But they think, because they have roles in anointing the king or the monarch when they need to be crowned, because they have privileges of a voice on radio and television whenever there's any issue that needs to be discussed, because they have 26 bishops in the House of Lords, in our actual parliament, right, because they have the right to say prayers at the beginning of every government meeting. Wow. They think, the county doesn't, but they think that they should be allowed to recruit children from our schools.
Well, in my mind, when you consider the demographics of England and Europe and in the United States, where you see that there's a not only a pushback, but church attendance is down, parishes are being collapsed, buildings are being sold, people are not just involved with organized religion anymore. I consider this. Because the whole idea is get the children, right? Because you want a customer for life.
Yep.
that and this is a term that I don't know if I've seen it before, but it's like religiophilia
Yeah.
instead of pedophilia. And when we talk about organized religion, we're talking about using the same tactics of bullying, of intimidation, of silencing, of censorship that you also find not only in organized religion but organized crime.
Yeah.
There's a duality there, and I'm not saying the sky is falling or anything like that, but that we have to be socially aware, and that people like us and the viewers who are watching this have to be really astute in understanding that if we don't fight back socially, politically, not taking up arms, I'm not saying do that, this is only going to continue and it's going to get worse.
So
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Regarding the go get the children while they're young, it's I hate to say it, but it's a very clever move, because it's easier to go to a 6-7-year-old kid and tell them, hey, there's a magic imaginary friend watching from above everything you do, everything you say. And if you come to an adult that has never heard anything like that in his life, in his mid-20s or 30s, he ain't gonna buy it. So I think
get them while they're vulnerable. That's the thing.
That's a.
So you weren't
clever, and I hate it.
You weren't with us last week, Gregory, when we had an item about a vicar who had preached in a school and told the young children, 8 and 9, that Santa wasn't real. Watch.
He's got his.
I know. Watch that show. You'll see what you missed.
Please do. Please do.
By the way, this is not new, because the Jesuits, and I worked at a Jesuit school, have this phrase: "Give me a child of 7, and I will show you the man."
Yep.
That's, I think that's St. Peter, right? It could be. It's one of them, but it's like, this is not new.
No. So to end on a lighter note, I think you'll like this, because the French Catholic Church has they've had a what you might call an icon of respect, a very good reputation. A guy called
an icon
Abbé,
works, icon.
Abbé Pierre. He was a revered. He's dead, but he was a revered priest and humanitarian icon. But he's been outed posthumously as a committer of sexual violence. And the president of the French Bishops' Conference announced on a radio interview, "We must get to the bottom of the truth, uncover any additional victims, accomplices, and failures to report these crimes." So there you go. There's some justice happening belatedly for this guy who got away with it with 17 additional, 7 women, 1 was minor, and 17 more recent ones have come to our notice since the publication of the original 7.
Wow.
So there you go. Maybe there is a God.
Well, it's so corrupting, right? The whole idea is that it's an all boys club, and you're not allowed to have sex. I mean, we're sexual beings, we're primates, for God's sake. The whole idea of us existing is to produce more of us, and here's this thing about, don't understand your body, don't understand relationships, don't understand your own sexuality. It is very frightening. But you're right. I mean, it's good when it's called to the carpet.
Catch them. That's what I say. Anyway, guys, we've hit the.
Sorry.
I'm just going to say we hit the notional deadline for the show length, which is 40 minutes. So I'm going to say thank you very much. You've been fantastic. and I shall definitely, with your permission, upload this show to the channel. Okay?
Sure.
Say
Thumbs up.
goodbye. Thank you.
Very nice meeting
Bye.
you.
Thank you.
Was the Pope appealing for peace, or was he praying for peace?
And the same applies to the carried and dragged
Yeah, that's a good
King's
question.
Lynch.
So what do you have to say about that guy?